All right, so we have 5.8c, which is evaluate the discriminant of a quadratic function. Okay, so our objective here is to determine the number, not hashtag, and types of solutions. Oh, that was really bad. Solutions to a quadratic function. I'm going to abbreviate by using the discriminant. So let's first talk about what the discriminant is. The discriminant is discriminant. That is what's underneath the square root, b squared minus 4ac. Okay? So that is the discriminant of any type of quadratic function. And the discriminant is going to tell us basically how many x-intercepts that we have. Okay? So if the discriminant is greater than 0, you have two real solutions. Okay, so if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 million, you're going to have two real solutions, which means that it crosses the x-axis twice. So because you have two real solutions, that means that you actually have two x-intercepts. Okay, so your graph will look something like this, you know. And so remember, graphing, you know, that, and I think I actually even mentioned it before, that when we were solving by factoring, that, you know, if you got two answers, you had two x-intercepts, and if you got one answer, you had one x-intercept, and that was going to end up being your vertex and all that stuff. And now we're going to also throw in when the graph does not even cross the x-axis, which we'll see here in a moment. But so if the discriminant is bigger than 0, you're going to have two real solutions, which means you've got two x-intercepts. Okay, it will cross the x-axis twice, depending on whether it's opening up or opening down. Okay, now if the discriminant equals 0, just straight up equals 0, okay, that means you have one real solution. Okay, so it hits the x-axis once, so one time. Okay, I use the word hit. Technically, like the technical term is, it touches the x-axis once. Okay, it does not cross the x-axis, it just touches the x-axis. Okay, so that means that you will have one x-intercept. So what that looks like is, oh, no, that did not hit it. Oh, apparently I'm having a really hard time. How about I just do this? So it hits that x-axis just one time. Okay, so it can happen, you know, anywhere on the x-axis, but it just touches it. It will never actually cross the x-axis. So that's if the discriminant just straight up equals 0. Now let's talk about if the discriminant is less than 0. Oh dear. Okay, so if it's less than 0, that means it's going to be a negative number. And think about it. When you have a negative inside the square root, you have an imaginary number. Okay, so it's not one that you actually end up seeing. Okay, so that means that you have two imaginary solutions. Okay, so it does not cross or touch the x-axis. So that actually means you have no x-intercepts. Okay, so that would be something like this, you know, where it just totally, it won't hit it. ever. Okay, because if you are graphing on a real coordinate plane, then you cannot actually graph any imaginary numbers. So if you have two imaginary solutions, you actually technically do not have any x-intercepts. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to look at, so the directions are to determine the discriminant of the quadratic function, the number and type of solution, and how many x-intercepts you have. Okay, so we're going to figure out what the discriminant is, the number and type of solutions, and then how many x-intercepts that we have. Okay, so there are 3 pieces of information I'm looking for here. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the video here and move on to part 2 to actually do the 3. I only have 3 examples of this that go underneath this set of directions, and then I'll be able to fit that all into one video.